The day I realized I didn't matter to my in-laws began like any other Saturday, slow and unremarkable. I was still in my pajamas, sipping lukewarm coffee, while flipping through an old recipe binder I'd pulled from the bottom kitchen drawer. The morning sun spilled over the counter in warm patches, and somewhere down the street, a neighbor's lawnmower buzzed in rhythm with the chirping of early spring birds. The world felt normal, familiar. Then my phone buzzed. I barely glanced at it, expecting some promotional email or a recipe suggestion from one of the dozens of food blogs I subscribed to. But it was a text from Claudia, my sister-in-law, the kind of person who always found a way to sound both cheerful and condescending, even in text. Group selfie at Bella Trattoria, Dad's favorite spot. Planning's almost done for the big day. Attached, a photo. My thumb hovered over the image preview, heart thudding in a strange rhythm. I tapped it open. There they were. Tom, my husband, in his soft blue sweater, the one I bought him for Christmas, grinning beside his sister. Their mother, Olivia, in her usual pearl earrings and stiff smile. And in the center, Martin, my father-in-law, his face lit up like a child on Christmas morning, champagne flute raised mid-toast. My stomach twisted into a cold knot. The caption didn't mention me. My name wasn't tagged. There wasn't even a courtesy message like, "Wish you were here?" I scrolled up, rereading the message. Planning's almost done for the big day. What big day? Then it clicked. Martin's 70th birthday. I froze. We'd been casually talking about his birthday for weeks. At least I had. I'd mentioned cake ideas, potential venues, music. Tom had nodded along absent-mindedly, always meant to bring it up with the family, but somehow never did. Now I saw why. They were already planning it. Without me. Behind my back. In that photo, they looked like a family who shared something I never truly belonged to, like they were in on a joke I'd never heard the punchline to. They were laughing, smiling, toasting, and I was here, in our kitchen, alone. I put my coffee down carefully, the ceramic clinking softly against the countertop. It sounded louder than it should have. I stared at my reflection in the black screen of the stove. Disheveled hair, bare face, an old college sweatshirt. I looked like a ghost haunting someone else's home. How many times had I told myself they were warming up to me? That things took time? How many dinners had I hosted, where I lingered by the stove a little longer, hoping Olivia might compliment my cooking? How many conversations had I politely smiled through, while Claudia talked over me, as if I were invisible? My phone buzzed again. I half hoped it was a correction, an apology, a message just for me. It wasn't. It was another group photo. Claudia had sent it to the same family chat. This time, they were huddled around a menu, laughing. No masks, no seats for me. I stared at the screen, the phone growing heavier in my hand. I wanted to throw it across the room, but I didn't. That would make it too real. Instead, I placed it face down and stared out the kitchen window. The bird feeder I'd set up last week was already empty. A pair of robins pecked at the ground nearby, scrounging for crumbs I hadn't left. I suddenly felt very much like them, excluded, hungry for acknowledgement, and completely out of place. I sat at the kitchen table, the wood grain beneath my fingers suddenly unfamiliar, cold. My phone lay face down beside a half-drunk mug of coffee, the edge of the handle glinting in the sunlight that had started to slip behind a passing cloud. I felt hollow, not angry, not yet. Just stunned. Like someone had quietly erased me from a photograph I didn't even know was being taken. Tom hadn't texted me. He hadn't called. Not a single explanation or heads up. He was probably still out, laughing with his family. His real family. The ones who thought I was an accessory rather than a person. And worse, he clearly hadn't thought it was important to include me. I turned my phone over and opened our last text thread. The most recent message was from 2 nights ago. Me. Can you grab eggs on the way home? We're out. Tom. Will do. Love you. I stared at those 3 words, Love you. What did they even mean anymore? I glanced back at the group photo. Claudia had tagged everyone: Tom, Olivia, even their cousin Greg, who hadn't shown up yet. My name wasn't there. There was no mention of me in the caption, no casual, "Jules is working, but she'll join later." Not even a lie to soften the exclusion. Just nothing, like I didn't exist. I racked my brain for a justification. Maybe it was a surprise party, maybe they thought I'd spoil it, but no. If that were true, Tom would have told me something. A hint, a wink, a little breadcrumb to follow. He wasn't that good at keeping secrets, especially not from me. But this wasn't a secret, this was a choice. And it wasn't the first time. I let the memories come. The first Christmas after our wedding. How Claudia had handed me a stocking with my name spelled wrong and laughed like it was a joke. Or the family barbecue where Olivia asked me to take photos the whole time, subtly keeping me out of every single one. And then there was that awkward dinner 2 years ago when I offered to bring dessert, and Claudia said, "Maybe store-bought this time, just in case." I'd smiled through it all, bit my tongue, swallowed every little cut with polite silence, convincing myself I was overreacting, that things would change. But this, planning Martin's entire 70th birthday behind my back, in a restaurant I wasn't invited to, for a party that would happen in my own house, was a different level of disregard. They weren't being careless. They were sending a message, and I heard it loud and clear. "You're not one of us. You never were." I stood up, needing to move. My body was buzzing with suppressed energy, like my muscles didn't know whether to flee or fight. I paced the kitchen, my mind racing in circles, brushing against all the moments I'd been overlooked, dismissed, talked down to. I thought of the time I offered to host Easter brunch, and Olivia insisted it was too much work for me, even though she let Claudia host Thanksgiving without batting an eye. Or the baby shower I helped organize for Claudia's third child, where she forgot to mention my name during the thank you speech. I thought I was earning my place, brick by brick, smile by smile. Turns out I was building a home on land they never intended to share. The sound of a car door slamming outside jolted me. I looked out the window and saw Tom's sedan pull into the driveway. My heart thudded with dread. He didn't text ahead, didn't call. I watched him gather a paper bag from the passenger seat. Takeout, probably. Something comforting. Something normal. He didn't know I knew, and I wasn't sure what would hurt more, his apology or the absence of one. The door creaked open, and I heard Tom's familiar footsteps in the hallway, the ones I usually found comforting. But tonight, each step felt louder, heavier, like they belonged to a stranger entering a house that was no longer his own. "Hey, babe," he called casually. "Got dinner, your favorite. Pad thai with extra lime, no peanuts." I stood in the kitchen, facing the window. My arms were crossed so tightly across my chest, it felt like I was holding myself together. He walked in carrying a brown paper bag, oblivious, still smiling, humming. He leaned in to kiss my cheek, but I didn't turn my face. He paused. "What's up?" he asked, half laughing, like this was a joke he wasn't in on. "I got a text from Claudia," I said, my voice quiet but sharp. He blinked. "Oh?" "She sent a photo," I continued, turning to look him in the eye. "From Bella Trattoria." His expression faltered. Just for a moment, barely a flicker, but I saw it. "That was earlier today," he said carefully, setting the takeout on the counter. "We just grabbed a quick lunch." "You mean the lunch where you finalized plans for your dad's birthday party?" Tom's jaw tensed. He didn't answer right away. I didn't let him. "Do you want to explain why I wasn't invited? Or even told?" My voice cracked slightly. I hated that. I didn't want to sound hurt. I wanted to sound furious. But pain always snuck through first. "Jules, it wasn't like that," he said, stepping closer. "Claudia and Mom, they just kind of took the lead. It wasn't planned like some conspiracy." I laughed bitterly. "Oh, so they accidentally planned a party behind my back? In our house?" Tom winced. "I didn't think it would bother you this much." That stung more than I expected. I leaned back against the counter, gripping the edge. That's the problem, Tom, I said. You didn't think. You didn't even pause to ask how I might feel, watching your entire family toast to plans I wasn't included in, watching you smile while I sat here, wondering why I always feel like a ghost when they're around. He ran a hand through his hair. It's not personal, Jules. You've said it yourself. They're just closed off sometimes. No, they're cruel sometimes, I snapped. And you let them be. I'm trying to keep the peace, he said, his voice rising now too. If I push back on every little thing— This isn't a little thing, I shouted. The kitchen fell silent. My shout echoed off the tile, startling even me. I lowered my voice again. This is the last straw. I've spent years trying to earn their respect. Your mother corrects my tone like I'm her intern. Claudia treats me like I'm invisible. And you? You say nothing, every single time. Tom sat down at the table, burying his head in his hands. I just wanted things to go smoothly for Dad. He's turning 70, Jules. He's been looking forward to this. And what about me? I asked, stepping forward. I've been looking forward to feeling like I belong. I've bent over backwards for years, Tom. I've hosted. I've smiled through insult after insult. I've defended you to my friends when they said your family didn't like me. He looked up, his eyes red. I didn't know it was this bad. I crossed my arms. That's because you didn't want to know. Silence fell again, but this time it was heavier, dense with words unspoken and feelings long buried. He opened his mouth to speak, but I shook my head. I don't need an apology right now, I said quietly. I need space and honesty. Figure out which one you're capable of. Then I turned and left the kitchen, retreating to the guest room, where I locked the door and sat on the edge of the bed, trying to remember what it felt like to be chosen. The guest room felt colder than usual. Maybe it was the chill of avoidance, or maybe it was just the silence pressing against the walls like fog. I sat on the edge of the bed, knees tucked to my chest, staring at the blank cream wall across from me. The walls here didn't hold family portraits. No memories. Just paint. Neutral. Impersonal. My phone buzzed again. For a second, I considered ignoring it, but my curiosity won. A message from Claudia lit up the screen. Can you check with Tom if you guys can still host on Sunday? We figured it'd be easiest since Dad's already used to the space. We'll bring the decorations and cake. No. Hi. No. Sorry you weren't there today. No pretense. I stared at the words, my thumb hovering over the reply button. She wanted me to check with Tom. Not us, not me. Just Tom. As if I were the housekeeper. As if this were their Airbnb and not my home too. I felt the slow burn of anger rise, hot and acidic in the back of my throat. They were going to waltz into my house, my kitchen, my dining room, and celebrate Martin's birthday like I didn't exist. Like I hadn't scrubbed that guest bathroom clean 2 days ago, or carefully chosen those framed photos lining the hallway. I remembered hanging up that picture of Tom and his father by the garden, thinking it might win me points. It hadn't. Claudia's text was the final push. I opened a blank message. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a second, letting the moment sink in. Then I typed, "No. You'll need to find another venue. This house will not be available for your event." I stared at it. Should I say more? Should I explain myself? No, let them feel the sting of brevity. I hit send. The read receipt appeared almost instantly, followed by the familiar bouncing dots of a reply. Wait, what? Why? We've already told everyone the address. The dots reappeared before I could respond. Can you at least talk to Tom before making decisions like this? This isn't your party. That last line hit like a punch. This isn't your party. It echoed through my chest. I didn't reply. Instead, I stood up, walked back into the kitchen, and found Tom sitting exactly where I'd left him. Head bowed, elbows on the table, untouched takeout in front of him. He looked up when I entered. I told them they can't have the party here, I said flatly. He blinked. You what? I told Claudia the house isn't available, that they'll need a new venue. He stood up slowly, uncertainly. You just canceled it? I nodded. Yes, because I'm done hosting people who treat me like furniture. He looked stunned, as if the world had tilted sideways. Jules, this is going to cause a huge mess. No, I said, stepping closer. It already is a mess. I'm just not cleaning it up this time. He exhaled, leaning against the counter like he couldn't find solid ground. They'll blame you. I don't care. He searched my face for softness, for hesitation. But I wasn't offering any. They don't get to erase me and still use my home, I said. They don't get to humiliate me in group chats, then show up with balloons and cake like I'm the help. I have bent over backward for your family, Tom. And now I'm done bending. He was quiet for a long moment. I didn't know how deep this ran, he finally said. I looked him in the eyes. That's not an excuse anymore. He nodded slowly, eyes cast downward. I'll call my dad, let him know. That surprised me. You will? I should have done it a long time ago, he said. You've been patient. I've been complicit. For the first time in days, my shoulders relaxed, just a little. I'm not trying to start a war, I said. I just want some peace. And maybe, just once, to be seen. He stepped forward, reaching for my hand. You will be, he said. I hoped he meant it, because peace wasn't going to come without a fight. Sunday arrived with an eerie kind of quiet. There were no streamers on the front porch, no rush of voices downstairs, no Olivia arriving early to oversee the layout, no Claudia clattering into the kitchen, uninvited with store-bought cookies she'd claim as homemade. The front door stayed closed, and the driveway remained empty except for Tom's car and mine. For once, our home actually felt like ours. I brewed a fresh pot of coffee, each crackle of the machine grounding me. The kitchen smelled like toasted cinnamon and citrus from the candle I'd lit, not cheap party balloons and over-perfumed guests. I sat at the table with a warm mug and watched the sunlight slip through the blinds, stripes of gold cutting across the wood. Tom came in, quiet. His expression was unreadable, but his body language wasn't tense anymore, just tired. I called him, he said softly. My heart kicked. And? He wasn't happy. Said I should have told him sooner. Said Claudia was freaking out. I raised my brows. Sounds about right. But he also listened, Tom added, sliding into the seat across from me. I told him everything. How I've let things slide. How you've been treated. How I never stood up for you like I should have. My fingers curled slightly around the coffee mug. What did he say? Tom hesitated, then smiled faintly. He said he figured something was wrong, that he noticed the way you were left out, but didn't want to stir the pot. I blinked, surprised. He noticed? Tom nodded. He said he's not proud of the way they've acted either, that he likes you, a lot, and that he wished he'd spoken up. A strange warmth bloomed in my chest, one part validation, one part sadness. All this time, Martin had seen what I was going through, but said nothing. Still, it was something. He said he didn't want a big party anymore, Tom continued, that he'd rather just have a quiet dinner, with the people who actually see him, not the ones who make it about themselves. I let out a slow breath. What are you thinking? He asked gently. I stood, heart steady. I'm thinking, maybe we cook something together, just us. If he wants to stop by, great. If not, fine. But we spend the day with intention. No chaos, no pretenses. Tom smiled. I like that. So we did. We didn't rush. We chopped vegetables together, shoulder to shoulder. Tom grated Parmesan, while I seared garlic and olive oil for the risotto. We laughed about how bad he was at mincing onions, and he admitted he Googled how to emotionally support your wife after an in-law fallout. At 4:30 p.m., there was a knock on the door. Tom answered it while I wiped my hands on a towel and peeked around the corner. Martin stood there, holding a bottle of red wine and a small wrapped box. He wore a simple navy cardigan his gray hair combed neatly. His expression was hesitant, but his eyes were warm. "No balloons?" I said, stepping forward. He smiled. "Not today." Tom gave us space, walking to the kitchen while Martin stepped into the living room. "I wanted to say thank you," he said, setting the wine down gently on the coffee table. "For?" I asked cautiously. "For saying no," he said. "You were the only one with the courage to draw a line. I should have drawn it years ago." I studied his face. He looked older today, not just in years, but in realization, like someone who had finally taken off a mask that had grown too heavy to wear. "I didn't want to ruin your birthday," I said. "You didn't," he replied. "You saved it." I didn't know what to say to that. Then he handed me the box. "It's not much, just something I picked out a while back. Wasn't sure when to give it." I opened it carefully, unfolding the tissue paper inside. It was a small gold pendant, oval-shaped with a tiny engraving on the back. "To Jules. Family is chosen." I swallowed hard. "It's beautiful." "I mean it," he said. "You've shown more grace and patience than most people ever could. You're exactly who I'd want my son to build a life with." Tears gathered before I could stop them. I blinked them away. "Thank you," I whispered. He smiled. "Now, how about some risotto?" The risotto was creamy, slow-cooked with roasted butternut squash and fresh sage from the garden Tom swore he'd water more often. Martin took his first bite, leaned back, and made a satisfied noise that felt more genuine than any toast I'd seen him give at those elaborate family dinners. "This," he said, pointing at his plate with his fork, "beats the hell out of cold pasta trays and helium headaches." Tom laughed. "Told you Jules knows her way around a meal." "She always did," Martin replied, locking eyes with me across the table. We clinked wine glasses, and for a few brief, golden hours, it felt like the version of family I'd always hoped for. There was no Claudia swooping in with passive-aggressive one-liners, no orchestrated photo ops, no comparing whose kids had better test scores. Just us. After dessert, Tom's modest attempt at lava cake that didn't lava, but tasted amazing anyway, Martin stood and reached into his coat pocket. "I was saving this for after the party," he said, pulling out a crisp white envelope. "But the party changed, so this feels more right." He handed it to Tom. "What's this?" Tom asked, brow furrowed. Martin gestured for him to open it. Inside was a folded letter and a certified document. Tom unfolded the letter first, his eyes skimming quickly. His brows lifted as he reached the end. "Wait, are you serious?" he asked, voice thick. I looked from him to Martin. "What is it?" Martin gave a half smile. "A little surprise." Tom cleared his throat and turned to me. "It's a deed transfer for the lake house. Dad's giving it to us." I blinked. "Wait, the cabin in Windmere?" Martin nodded. "It's been in the family for generations. My parents bought it. I rebuilt most of it with my own hands after a storm in '89. Claudia assumed it would go to her, but, well, I've been thinking long and hard about legacy lately." I was stunned. "But why us?" "Because you're the ones who show up," he said simply. "Not just physically, but emotionally. You don't pretend. You try. Even when people make it impossible. I've watched you, Jules. I've seen how they treat you. And I should have stepped in sooner. But today reminded me what matters." He tapped the table gently. "This is family, what we're doing here. Not some bloated party where everyone's performing for each other." I didn't know what to say. Emotion tangled up in my throat like a knot. Gratitude, relief, a little vindication. But mostly, peace. "I don't need the house," I said softly. "Just knowing you see me means more." He leaned forward, his voice low. "It's not just about what you need. It's about what you deserve." Tom wrapped an arm around me, squeezing gently. That moment, the simplicity, the honesty, was better than any big celebration. No cake tiers or Instagram reels could have matched the stillness of being seen. of finally being recognized as someone who belonged. Later that night, after Martin left and Tom had gone to bed, I sat alone in the living room, the small gold pendant still warm against my chest. I thought about how far we'd come, how I'd gone from questioning everything to standing firm in who I was. I hadn't canceled Martin's party to be petty. I'd canceled it because it was the first time I'd prioritized myself in that family dynamic. And the irony was beautiful. The moment I said no to everyone else was the moment I made space for something real. Martin's final gift wasn't the lake house. It wasn't even the pendant. It was the validation I never thought I'd receive. A reminder that sometimes the most powerful way to be included is to stop asking for permission